Next up, we have John Todd from Quad 9, who is going to be presenting the last leg, the case for encryption for recursive to authoritative.
So what I'm going to talk about here, or at least I'm going to kind of plea with the audience, is talking to you about the conditions that we see right now. Quad 9 deploys to close to 300 locations, many of them in what we would call hostile environments, meaning that there are issues with legal or policy questions in those nations which require some sort of censorship. And getting to the first talk, or the last talk given, which was very interesting about DOE, we've actually done a reasonably good job now in doing something for the end client. The people who are most interested in getting privacy and security, meaning non-manipulation of their traffic, we actually have some answers. In fact, we have a wealth of answers. There are at least now probably roughly 4 or 5 different protocols you can use, from the client to the recursive. However, we are missing something. We are missing the encryption and the protection between the recursive and the authoritative side. And while we have DNS-SEC, which gives us the ability to assure the answers are what in fact we intended, there is now there are no standards right now to ensure actual delivery or to ensure protection of that delivery. There are some protections that we sort of have in kind of current state right now, is that of course when you have a recursive resolver with a lot of end users in it, the answers get mixed in. It's very difficult to tell who's querying what, so there's some protection, but that's not good enough. What we are seeing today, meaning that we are actually observing in the wild, as actually I think Warren mentioned or others, there is actual interception and manipulation of the traffic at the recursive to authoritative leg. We're actually seeing traffic being intercepted and not simply being rewritten, but simply blocked. So DNS-SEC doesn't do you any good if the traffic or if those query responses aren't getting back to you at all. So there needs to be a standards method, and this is my request here, that there needs to be a standards-based method where we can assure that the traffic between the authoritative and recursive components of this stack, this last leg, even though it's actually the first leg technically, that those are encrypted in some fashion. Over the years, there have been multiple people who have talked about it, and there have been even some attempts at writing standards, but those have all kind of stalled. And now that we've given the client side of the equation some good protection, the next place that we're going to see, and we are seeing focus, is the attack on that last unencrypted component. And so I think we as a community need to look at this and come up with some answers sooner than later. The attacks are current, they are now, and they are going to be becoming more broad as time goes on, because this is the last place you can really focus in until you get to the the point where it's just policy, where it's legal action saying we want to, you must give us information. That data is now currently still visible. We need to make it invisible. There's opportunistic DOT, and I guess one of my comments here is that I'd like to encourage everyone to try to look at that. It's not a great answer. In fact, it's probably a terrible answer because it can be forced into downgrade mode, right? Opportunistic DOT, you just turn it on, you start answering queries over port 853. There are some authoritatives already currently doing this. There's actually some ccTLDs and one root and a whole bunch of individual other name servers. Quad 9 is now trying it in experimental mode, looking at it from the recursive side. We would like to see others. I know Google tried it for a while as well. It's better than nothing, but it's certainly not great, and it is not the answer, but it is a step in the right direction. So this will be a relatively short talk. I guess my last component here is that I'm really hoping that as a community we can actually start to work on standards more seriously for that last leg, which is unencrypted. And I guess I wanted to raise the issue that this is real, it's happening now, and we need to actually have some work towards it. I know that there's work, or there are good hints that the DELEG components will actually have some light in this area. I have to read those more. I admit that I haven't actually read all the details about it. But that describes the method by which we transport information around encryption, but we need to actually figure out how we're going to do it. We need more experimentation. There needs to be more understanding from the authoritative side, how much, what the load is going to look like. Is this a denial of service attack in the waiting for that? But I think it's time that we actually all started to pay more attention to that component. I see Ralph is getting up, but I'm not allowed to take questions, so I'm going to probably have to tell Ralph to chat with me out of band. Are we good to take a question? We can take one question. I'll make a statement. Ralph?
Yeah, I mean, you already pointed at DELEG. I think I mean, the probing, as you said, is not the way, and if you implement it it's waste of work because you have to throw it away in a couple of years. DELEG, there's a working group now. I think that is the way. And once we have then noted the signaling, how authorities can signal encrypted transport, then it will eventually follow. So that more statement, that's the way to go. And please participate.
Yeah, I hope that everyone does. But again, we got to do what we can do as soon as possible. VPNs are not the answer. Encrypted transport from the recursive to the authoritative can't work. So standards-based work is required. So thank you.
Thank you very much.